Millionaire pretends to be paralyzed to test his girlfriend, but the maid wins his heart. Edward Langston was a man whose name often appeared in glossy magazines. At 38, he had already built a chain of luxury hotels along the West Coast. His business empire sparkled just like the chandeliers in his grand Los Angeles mansion. People admired his charm, envied his fortune, and whispered about the glamorous woman always at his side. Her name was Vanessa Reed. With her striking looks and dazzling smile, Vanessa seemed like the perfect partner for a man of Edward's stature. She loved fine wine, designer handbags, and the kind of luxury that Edward's world provided without effort. To outsiders, they looked like the perfect couple, a millionaire and his beautiful girlfriend. But Edward wasn't sure. Despite Vanessa's charm, something about her devotion felt thin, as though it were painted on like expensive lipstick that fades with time. He often asked himself, would she still be with me if the money disappeared? The question haunted him. One evening, as they sat in a high-end restaurant overlooking the city lights, Vanessa leaned across the table, her red nails tapping against his wine glass. "Edward," she said casually, "you work too hard. Don't you ever wonder what would happen if you couldn't keep this up? If something slowed you down?" Edward stiffened. Her words, though veiled, touched on his deepest fear. He forced a smile. "I suppose I'd find out who truly cares for me." Vanessa's laugh was musical, but it didn't reach her eyes. That night, Edward lay awake in his vast bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his fortune, his reputation, and the people surrounding him. Were they drawn to him, or to his wealth? By dawn, he had made a decision. He would find out. A week later, Edward called Vanessa with a shaky voice. "There's been an accident," he said. "I fell during a hotel inspection. The doctors say my legs may be paralyzed." Silence. Then Vanessa gasped, playing her part well. "Oh, Edward, that's horrible. I'll come right away." Within the hour, she arrived at the mansion with crocodile tears glistening on her cheeks. She hugged him gently as he sat in a wheelchair, something he had rented for his little experiment. "I'll take care of you," she whispered. "Don't worry about a thing." For the first 2 weeks, she was convincing. She hovered near him, posting dramatic Instagram updates about standing by my man, making calls to friends about how hard things were. But Edward noticed the details. She avoided helping him with basic tasks, often summoning the house staff instead. She sighed when he asked for water, and her phone buzzed late into the night with messages she never explained. Edward's heart sank. His fears were being confirmed. But while Vanessa's affection cooled, someone else's presence warmed. Maria Alvarez had been Edward's maid for nearly 3 years. Quiet, diligent, and often invisible in the mansion's glittering halls. She rarely spoke unless spoken to. But when Edward wheeled himself into the kitchen one morning and struggled to reach a coffee cup, it was Maria who appeared. "Here, Mr. Langston," she said softly, taking the cup down. "You'll hurt yourself trying to stretch like that." Edward smiled weakly. "Thank you, Maria. I'm still adjusting." From that day on, Maria began helping him more often. Not because it was her job, but because she noticed his needs before he even asked. She made simple, nourishing meals instead of the extravagant takeout Vanessa preferred. She carefully arranged the blankets on his lap when the evenings grew chilly. And when she wheeled him into the garden, she told him little stories about her childhood in Mexico, her dreams for her younger brother's education, and her love for flowers. Edward found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. One afternoon, as they sat among the roses, Edward asked her, "Maria, don't you ever get tired of caring for people who hardly notice you?" Maria tilted her head, thinking, "Kindness is never wasted, sir. Even if no one sees it, it changes something. In them or in me." Her words struck Edward deeper than she could have imagined. Cracks in facade. Vanessa's mask began to crumble. By the 3rd month of Edward's paralysis, she visited less frequently. When she did, she dressed as if heading to a gala, barely acknowledging Edward before announcing she had another charity event to attend. One evening, Edward confronted her. "Vanessa, why don't you stay? We could watch a film together. I could use the company." She rolled her eyes. "Edward, I can't spend all my time stuck in this house. I need a life. You understand, don't you? Maria, polishing the silver tray nearby, froze at the harshness of Vanessa's tone. Edward noticed a flicker of pity in Maria's eyes, and something inside him cracked. He realized then that Vanessa's love was conditional, a performance, the breaking point. It happened on a rainy Thursday evening. Edward had asked Vanessa to come over, hoping, just once, that she would surprise him with genuine care. Instead, she arrived late, smelling of champagne, her lipstick smudged. She glanced at Edward in his wheelchair and sighed dramatically. "This isn't working," she announced. "I didn't sign up to be a nurse. You're not the man I fell in love with. You're half a man now." Her words sliced through the room. Maria, carrying a tray of tea, gasped softly, her eyes wide with disbelief. Edward felt anger rise, but also relief. The truth had been revealed. "Then go," Edward said coldly. "You deserve more, and so do I." Vanessa blinked, stunned. "You can't mean that. You need me." But Edward only turned his wheelchair toward the window. Without another word, Vanessa stormed out, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. The silence that followed was heavy. Maria set down the tray, her hands trembling. "I'm so sorry, sir. You don't deserve that." Edward turned to her slowly. His heart pounded. The time had come. "Maria," he said gently, "there's something I need to tell you." He rose from the wheelchair. Maria's eyes widened as Edward straightened to his full height. "Mr. Langston, you can walk?" "Yes," Edward admitted. "I never had an accident. I only pretended, because I needed to know the truth about Vanessa, about whether she loved me or only my wealth." Maria's lips parted in shock. She looked as though she wanted to be angry, but instead, tears welled in her eyes. "All this time," she whispered. Edward stepped closer. "And during this time, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Your kindness, your strength. You cared for me when you thought I was broken, when I had nothing to offer in return. That's more valuable than all the riches in the world." Maria shook her head. "I'm just your maid. I don't belong in your world." Edward gently took her hand. "Maria, you've already become my world." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for the first time in years, Edward felt at peace. The man who had everything finally understood what he'd been missing. Love without conditions. In the weeks that followed, Edward's mansion changed. Where once it had been filled with Vanessa's laughter and shallow parties, now it bloomed with warmth. Edward invited Maria to dine with him, to read beside him in the garden, to share her dreams openly. He even offered to sponsor her brother's education, not out of charity, but because, as he told her, families should lift each other up. Slowly, Maria's hesitation faded. The bond between them deepened into something undeniable. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Edward looked at Maria and said, "I once thought love was about beauty and glamour, but you've taught me it's about loyalty, kindness, and trust. Maria, would you stay by my side, not as my maid, but as my partner?" Maria's smile was soft and trembling. "Yes, Edward, with all my heart." Months later, Edward and Maria were seen walking hand in hand to the hotel gardens, their laughter carrying across the courtyard. Guests whispered about the millionaire who had fallen for his maid, but Edward didn't care. He knew what they didn't. That true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or properties, but in the love that stood beside you when the world thought you had nothing. And Edward Langston, once uncertain and lonely despite his riches, now felt richer than ever, because he had finally found true love.